Hello and welcome back to the channel of motorbike nonsense and the lay-by of discarded dildos and dodgy dogging. We're here to talk about supernakeds. I think 2021 has been the year of the supernaked. We've had the new Speed Triple from Triumph, the new Aprilia Torino V4 and the updated versions of the Ducati Street Fighter and kind of the KTM Super Duke got an orange bit on the back wheel. But anyway, I've not ridden this one. It's the BMW S1000R. It's pretty much all new for this year, so let's go for a walk around, take it for a ride and see if it's my favourite or where I'd rank it. There's quite a lot of traffic here and doggers. Yes, here it is, and it is the most affordable of the supernakeds by far. You can actually get one of these for £11,760, but really you want the sport version which gets electric suspension. That costs nearly £14,000 and that gets all sorts of things such as quick shifter, pro riding modes and better tyres. This one, cheeky BMW, is actually 16.5 grand because it's got the £2,800 M Sport package, which includes this lovely M Sport colour, forged wheels, a titanium Akrapovic exhaust. It's all very lovely. You also get a lightweight battery which apparently goes flat in about 2 weeks if you don't use it, and you can't use a normal charger to charge it, so that's great. You'll just swap that for a normal one. You also get an M seat and the famous from the internet M endurance chain, which is basically a zero maintenance chain, although I've also seen some people say it needs a bit of maintenance. But anyway, let's have a quick squiz at it. Aesthetically, it's completely different from the previous generations, isn't it? It's got a single, more traditional headlight rather than the squinty look that it had before, and it's got a light up bar across the middle. But yeah, it's a bit less striking, I think, than before, fair to say. You get LED indicators on this one. I should point out on the sport version, you actually get a cornering headlight as well, so I've got that. And at the back, you don't actually get a brake light. Look, there's nothing there. It's in the indicators, which are on all the time. And I think that's a bit dodgy because you can't always tell when the indicators are on. They're not as clearly distinguished as if you just had a separate brake light and indicator. But hey ho. Right, the big deal is that it's gone on a massive diet. The regular S1000R for 2021 is 7 kilos lighter than before, and this M Sport one is 5 kilos lighter than that, so 12 kilos lighter than the old bike. So it's 194 kilograms, moist, ready to go. There's also a £2,100 carbon fibre wheel option if you want to reduce the unsprung mass even more. Just like Share, it's got an all-new chassis this year. It's got the flex frame from the S1000R, and it's got the delightful bronze trellis at the back. It's narrower between your knees, and it's got the underslung swing arm as well from the R. The seat height is 830mm, although there is a higher option and a lower option should you want it. As usual, the sport model gets electric suspension, and all models get these new, well not new, they get the Hayes BMW brakes. And that's pretty much all there is to talk about from a chassis front. Obviously electronics wise, it has got the whole lot. And even the standard version gets cornering ABS, cornering traction control. If you get the sport, you get the pro riding modes, so you can adjust everything and do your wheelie control, pit lane limiter, launch control, yada yada yada. It's the familiar, absolutely brilliant, super easy to use BMW dash with the optional sport display, which will show you your record brake usage for a ride and your record traction control usage for a ride. So if you can get that up to 40% at the end of a ride, you've done well, and it records your max lean angle and all that kind of stuff. It's all operated from the usual iDrivey wheel here, which you click in, out and rotate, and these buttons control the menus. You can put the suspension between road and dynamic mode, whatever riding mode you're in here. It's got cruise control, it has heated grips, it's got a mode button to switch between dynamic, rain, road, dynamic, I've said already, dynamic pro. So yeah, it's quite simple as far as BMWs go. One little niggle I've got is keyless on and off, but you need the key for the fuel tank because there's not enough space under there apparently for all the keyless guff. But yeah, my usual kind of slight concerns about BMW build quality apply to this as well. I just never liked the rough casting of the frame on this and the R, and just, I don't know, it doesn't look very fancy, but I suppose if you don't spec it up, it is cheaper than most of the rest of the competition. Obviously we've got this as well because I think they did the launch using this bike on a track, and you have to have a brake lever guard on track now. Right, I suppose we should probably talk about the engine as well. It's the same 1000cc basically inline 4, 165 horsepower at 11,000 RPM, revs to 12,000, and it's got 114 Newton meters of torque, 9,250 RPM. It drinks from a 16.5 litre tank, so you'll get about 160 miles to a tank, and 4th, 5th and 6th gears are longer than before to make it less buzzy on the motorway, although it is still relatively buzzy, and also to improve fuel economy if you care about that sort of thing. But yeah, when you've got off a Ducati Street Fighter V4 that will struggle to do 80 miles to a tank, this suddenly looks very practical and very sensible. Anyway, that was a very quick walk around of the new 2021 BMW S1000R. Let's hop on, go for a ride and see how it compares to that new Speed Triple, that Street Fighter V4, the KTM Super Duke and the Aprilia. If I can remember how all of those rode, I think they can. Let's go. Right, let's hop on the S1000R and see if we can unpick it a bit to see if it lives up to all of those stereotypes that it's had over the years, you know, buzzy, vibratey, revvy, all that kind of stuff, and magic carpet ride, that's one of them as well. I've got a bit of history of the S1000R. A mate used to own one. We went on a tour together. I was on a Ducati Multistrada, he had an S1000R, and we swapped for a hool near the Milar Bridge, and his bike was more comfortable than my adventure bike, so yeah, I've got high hopes for this being a good all-round with a hooligan streak. Now, this has got that optional Krapovich exhaust, which is actually quite loud. I don't know if it's had the baffle taken out of it, but it's got a proper gaper when you look down the end of it. So yeah, 4-cylinder BMW. It's very easy to ride. That's the thing about this bike, is it's always been approachable because it doesn't go properly mental until you give it a bit of stick in the mid-range. So at low revs around town, it's easy to use. The mirrors are actually really good and they don't get vibey. They're just fine. I'm comfortable. I'm slightly leant forward, but not as much as on the Super Duke, and I don't think as much as on the Ducati or the Aprilia either. My knees are reasonably bent, but the pegs aren't as high as on the S1000R. So yeah, it's definitely a comfortable ride for touring, that kind of stuff, long distances, commuting. You could absolutely live with this every day, and BMW says this is a road bike first and foremost, but it can apparently go very well on track as well. I won't be doing that because I've got about an hour until it rains, and sadly my nearest track is an hour and 1 minute away. So yeah, it's very docile, very easy to use at low revs. That's the boring stuff out of the way. Oh, I've got my heated grips on. I just love sporty bikes with heated grips because you're going to use them more, aren't you? Anyway, let's go and do some very boring motorway stuff, and very quickly after that get onto some twisties and see how it feels. Back in a second. Right, as I get up to my 70 limit bit, I have to talk about the down blipper and the quick shifter because it works fine, but I found this with other BMWs as well, especially 4-cylinder ones. It's not very satisfying to use. It's kind of got this weird squodgy action. It's like someone's taken sheets of lasagna pasta and layered them together with blue tack in between. So it does kind of snap when you go for a downshift, but it's not very satisfying, and the lever doesn't feel like it's moving very far. So yeah, it's not got the best left foot feel, if that's something you care about. Right, anyway, I'm doing 70 miles an hour on the motorway and I've got wind blast. Obviously, I've got wind blast, it's a naked bike, that's what happens. However, I'm leant forward enough that I don't really care. I've chosen to use this bike for a few fairly big motorway trips, kind of 100 miles, 200 miles, that I normally do in the car. And this has actually been a really good bike to do it on, to be honest. I would happily tour on this because the riding position, the ergos, are comfortable enough, and the wind blast you just get used to, and it's got cruise control. Look, on 69 miles an hour because I'm not breaking the speed limit, and 69 is a funny number. That electronic suspension, you can put it in two modes, dynamic or road, using your switch on the left switch gear, and in road mode it is pretty damn good. Now, I would say it's as soft and as comfortable as the electronic suspension on the Aprilia and on the Ducati, which means it is really very good. You put it into dynamic mode and it's just sharpens up quite a bit, to be honest. It's not uncomfortable, but you'd want to switch to road for long trips. I'm not going to say it's a magic carpet ride because it's a motorbike, not a magic carpet, but it's decent. It is really comfy and absolutely makes this a viable daily bike. Oh, there's that blipper feel again. It's fine, it works, but you know, lasagna and blue tack, that's all I can think of now. Right, it is a bit wet and a bit damp in places, so I'm not going to go mental, but I'll get to Twisty Roads and I shall see you there. Alright, we are coming up to the Twisty Road, and continuity fans might have noticed that I'm not wearing my rucksack and it's a different day because my GoPro's messed up last time I did this. Anyway, the elephant in the room, I guess, with the new S1000R is that people in the press aren't 100% sure it's a supernaked, because 165 horsepower in upright bike isn't really that super anymore. I disagree, and I'll show you why in a second when I can go up here, because it's sodding quick. I think you can live in this world of online reviews from professionals who live on racetracks, and you kind of get eased into the sense that this bike is efficient and therefore a bit boring and a bit humdrum. Well, it's not. It's absolutely mental. I'm going to go from a 30 to 60 in Dynamic Pro, and we'll see how we go. Yep, it is a little bit nuts. It's got that really tame bottom end up to about 5,000 RPM, and then the mid-range kicks in and it goes absolutely mental. It's got so much mid-range, and you never really get near the red line because the front wheels go like this, especially in Dynamic Pro mode. It is a huge amount of fun, and if you're a wheelie monster you can probably hook that up to third, fourth and keep going down the straights. Yeah, it's not sanitized feeling. It is smooth though. That engine, the way it delivers its speed, it is just so smooth. It's got this wicked industrial yowl from that Krapovich exhaust, and it gives you lots of pops and bangs on downshifts. It feels very yobbish, and I like that. And I'm not usually a fan of loud pipes on inline fours, but this one is an absolute belter. It is wicked. But yeah, I can't get over how it makes its speed. It's like, I don't know, it's like the engine is full of luscious liquid speed and it just oozes out when you twist the throttle, not to get too Shakespearean. It is a phenomenal thing. Now I'm going to turn around and do this road again, talk about the handling, because I'm stuck behind someone delivering Mitsubishi branded chickens. They are chickens, aren't they? It feels so naughty. Right, let's talk about the handling. If there's one way to describe it, to be honest, it is confidence inspiring, and I love the way that you can put it in a softer road bias suspension mode at the flick of this switch down here, even if you're in Dynamic Pro or one of the racier settings. But yeah, it flicks from side to side as quickly as you like, but it doesn't really feel that flighty, which is quite nice. I thought the old one felt a bit vague. This doesn't. This gives oodles of feedback through the bum, through your foot pegs. It just feels really good, to be honest. It's been a bit cold around here and a bit damp, and I'm not going absolutely mental because the roads are a little bit damp. But I think this handles as well as any other naked, to be honest, and I think you could take this on the track day, and if your surname is anything other than Rossi, you'll have a wicked time on it. You can stiffen it up, go into the electronics and fiddle about, and just customize it to how you want to ride. But for the road, it is just really good with the suspension in road mode. If you put it in dynamic mode, for me it gets a little bit too firm, a little bit too skittish, but that's because we've got broken, crappy roads in the UK. So yeah, it goes well, it handles brilliantly, and for an inline 4 engine I think it's actually got quite a lot of character, which is probably the wrong thing to be saying when you look at the zeitgeist to this bike. It's lots of people saying it's the sensible one. Yes, I've got my heated grips on, yes I've got cruise control, yes I've got 150-160 miles of tank range ish, and you can ride it like a saint, but when you don't want to, it is mind-blowing. Yeah, very good. Well done BMW, you've made the S1000R even better to ride, and dismiss it at your peril. If you're looking for a super naked, let's go through the options, at least the ones I've ridden. I'll try and rank them because this is quite high up my list now. At the top of the Tim Rodey Rides Motorbikes 2021 super naked list is the KTM Super Duke. It's still there. I just love that engine, and it is absolutely nutty, and that engine works so well on the road with globs of torque, wheelies everywhere. It's not interested in setting fast lap times, although I'm sure it probably could. It is just what motorbiking is all about. It's a laugh out loud machine. Number 2, I'm on it, the S1000R. This has really surpassed all my expectations. I expect it to be like I read in the press, a bit, you know, good, but a bit humdrum. It's not. I love its Jekyll and Hyde personality, the way it can deliver ridiculous speed, great handling, and do all the day-to-day stuff as well, and stick the front wheel up in the air on demand. Number 3, I'm gonna go with the Triumph Speed Triple. I really like that bike. I think they've started winding the adjusters off now when they give them out to press. The one I had wasn't really too firm. It was firm, but nothing ridiculous. It'd be interesting to see if they put the electronic suspension from the Speed Triple RR on it, because that would be wicked. Next is the Aprilia Tirreno. I know it's very unfashionable to be sticking that low in the list, because again, it's one of those bikes everyone jizzes over. I love it, and I've always wanted to own one, but I just thought it was a bit heavy, a little bit dated in places, and the electronics weren't as good as I hoped. And then what's that leave? The Ducati Street Fighter V4. Now, I'm not saying any of these are bad bikes, because they're all absolutely wicked. It's just my personal preference, and I'd put the Ducati last. I think it's a little bit too serious for the road. By the time you are having any fun on it, you are doing 120 miles an hour in 3rd gear, and that's when it comes alive. And it doesn't really feel that exciting on the road unless you break the speed limit. And you know what I mean by that. It doesn't really doesn't give me the inclination to wheelie off crests or anything like that. It just wants to go quickly. So yeah, I've probably missed one. Right, that's going to be enough waffle from me about the S1000 Single R. Wicked bike. Go and give it a ride if you're in the market for a super naked. Don't discount it because it's not got a V-twin or a V4. It still feels pretty damn good, and obviously if you don't want the fancy one, it can be a lot cheaper than the others to buy as well. Anyway, thank you ever so much for watching. Hopefully that was useful. If it was, hit like. If it wasn't useful, also hit like, because it helps me out. Do subscribe to the channel. Check out my car channel, Tim Roadie Drive Stuff, and leave me a comment calling me someone that's a bit cold with hard nipples, because frankly it's before 9 o'clock and I'm just a bit chilly. Oh no, it's 9:30, sorry. Anyway, waffle, goodbye, good bike.